Ever feel like, your emotions kind of have you strapped into a roller coaster?
Hmm.
You just can't get off. Or maybe you're just stuck in that feeling of blah. The one, it just lingers. And no matter what you do, it just won't lift. Well, trust me, you're definitely not alone.
Uh-huh.
We're going to dive deep into all of that today, into the world of anxiety and depression.
Yeah, we'll unpack what those emotional states actually are, how they show up in our lives, and most importantly, how we can learn to deal with them.
We've got some interesting stuff to dig into today, too. Excerpts from Coping with Anxiety and Depression, Mental Disorders, Understanding and Awareness, and a presentation on therapy and suicide prevention.
And we'll go beyond just the modern understanding. We'll look back to it, how, say, the ancient Greeks, how they viewed depression. So a bit of a history lesson, a bit of a practical toolkit, for navigating those emotional ups and downs. We all have them.
Speaking of history, I'm really curious about, how was anxiety even perceived before it was, a medical condition? But before we jump ahead, let's break down the basics, right? Emotions. They're more than just those fleeting feelings, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely. They're these complex reactions. They have a real influence on how we think and how we behave.
And it's not a one-way street either.
Right. It's a two-way street because our emotions are also being shaped by, well, everything really. Biological things, psychological things, environmental things.
It's like this constant loop then.
Exactly, a feedback loop. Emotions influence our thoughts and actions, but then our experiences also circle back, feeding back into that emotional state. So to really understand anxiety and depression, we have to remember how connected they are to our physical well-being too, not just the mental.
Not all in our heads, as they say.
Exactly. Mind-body connection. It's powerful. Like, take apathy. Often people think it's just feeling blah, blah, but it's way more than that.
Yeah, I've definitely had times where I felt apathetic, but I don't know, I never really thought it could be like a symptom of something else or even have medical causes. You don't hear about that every day.
Right. It's overlooked. It's characterized by this lack of motivation, enthusiasm,
Yeah.
Imagine feeling emotionally numb, like you're just going through the motions, no real sense of purpose or engagement in anything.
It's kind of bleak, to be honest. Sounds exhausting.
It can be, and it goes deeper than just lack of interest. Could be medical conditions, side effects from medication, even like nutritional stuff.
So not a snap out of it situation.
Right.
Could be things going on we don't even realize.
Exactly. Got to figure those out to address the apathy.
Yeah.
Now, shifting gears a bit, another common one, anxiety. Unlike apathy, though, most people, they get what anxiety feels like.
That unease, worry, fear, right? Like before a big presentation or a job interview, everyone's been there, right?
Right. Natural human emotion. It's how our bodies deal with stress or danger. In fact, it can be good. Anxiety motivates us, push us to do better, meet deadlines.
It's like that burst of energy when a deadline's coming up, suddenly, bam, laser focus.
There you go. But the difference between that normal anxiety and an anxiety disorder is how intense it is, how long it sticks around, and what it does to our lives.
When does it cross the line then? From normal to disorder?
When it's too much all the time and it starts messing with your life. Imagine, like, anxiety's always there, shadowing you, holding you back from just living. That's when it's time to get some help. And it's surprisingly common.
40 million adults in the U.S. alone, right?
Yeah.
According to what we're looking at. That's a lot of people. What are the signs then? How do you know if it's an anxiety disorder?
Well, constant worry, that's a big one. But it can be physical, too. Restlessness, trouble focusing, irritable, muscle tension even, and sleep problems.
So it's a mental battle, but it takes a physical toll, too.
Exactly. And even within anxiety disorders, there are different types. Each one has its own thing, its own challenges.
I've heard of generalized anxiety disorder, but yeah, I'd be interested to go deeper on the different forms anxiety takes.
Let's do it. Generalized anxiety disorder, or GAD. People with that, they worry constantly, everyday stuff, way blown out of proportion. Relaxing's hard, even when things are good.
Like their worry switch is stuck on.
Exactly. Then you've got panic attacks. Sudden, intense fear comes out of nowhere.
Those sound terrifying. What triggers something like that?
Tough to say. Varies person to person, but panic attacks, they often have physical symptoms. Racing heart, chest pain, dizziness, can't breathe, and it feels like doom, like something awful's about to happen.
Body's stuck in fight or flight mode.
Yeah, like there's a real threat, but there isn't. Not really.
So we've got generalized anxiety disorder, panic attacks. What else? What other forms does anxiety take?
Well, there's social anxiety disorder, right? Fear, anxiety in social situations. Worried about being judged. Leads to avoiding people altogether. And then phobias. Intense but irrational fears, objects, situations.
Like fear of spiders, heights, public speaking, that sort of thing.
Exactly. All common phobias. And then there's OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, intrusive thoughts, the obsessions, and then compulsions, the repetitive behaviors. It's like they feel like they have to do them to ease the anxiety.
Yeah, those obsessions and compulsions, they can be about anything, really. Fear of germs is a big one, or needing things to be symmetrical, ordered just so.
Yeah.
Intrusive thoughts that won't quit, or
Yeah.
checking things over and over,
I can see how that would really mess with your day-to-day life.
big time. And last but not least, PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. After a traumatic event, that's when it can develop.
PTSD, you always hear about it with veterans, but I guess trauma can come from a lot of different places, right?
Absolutely. Physical assault, sexual assault, big accidents, natural disasters, even witnessing violence. And people with PTSD, they often relive the trauma through flashbacks, nightmares, or they feel emotionally numb, on edge all the time, can't sleep.
Like they're trapped, going through it again and again. Must be so hard to deal with those feelings. Are there ways to cope with anxiety, though? In general, I mean, no matter what type it is. For sure. One of the best is simple, actually. Exercise.
Makes sense. Whenever I'm anxious, a good run or hitting the gym, it really helps clear my head.
It's not just in your head. Working out, it releases endorphins, and those are mood boosters. Natural antidepressants, basically.
I'll take it. What else helps? Aside from hitting the gym, I mean.
This will sound basic, but eating healthy, sleeping enough, huge for mental well-being. Think of your body like I don't know, a car. You can't run it on bad fuel and no sleep, right?
Love that analogy.
Yeah.
We really do underestimate the simple stuff.
We do. Fast-paced world, easy to forget to take care of ourselves. But good food, enough sleep, it all makes a difference, to your mood, your resilience, everything.
Strong foundation, like you were saying. What about mindfulness, meditation? I've heard those can help with anxiety.
They definitely can. Mindfulness is all about being present right here, right now, no judgment, just noticing those thoughts and feelings without getting swept up in them. And meditation, it's a practice, cultivates calm, focus, awareness.
So it's like training your mind to stay present instead of going down the rabbit hole of anxiety about the past or the future.
You got it. And there are a bunch of different ways to do it. Apps, or just sitting and focusing on your breath, even deep breathing. When we're anxious, we take these short, fast breaths, right? Slowing it down, it's like telling your body, hey, chill out.
Hitting the pause button on the anxiety.
Right, you're basically interrupting how your body reacts to stress. Now, let's get a little historical for a sec. Anxiety, it's not new, right? It's been around forever.
I know. Thinking about how people used to see it, how they dealt with it back in the day.
Yeah.
So interesting.
Right. And according to what we've got here, yeah, anxiety's as old as time. There are even descriptions of anxiety symptoms in those old Greek medical texts, Hippocrates, he had some early theories about it.
Wow, the ancient Greeks too. That's wild.
Mm.
What did they think caused it?
Well, Hippocrates, he's the father of medicine, right? He thought it was an imbalance of, get this, bodily fluids, humors they called them, blood, phlegm, yellow bile, black bile. Thought that caused all sorts of illnesses, anxiety included.
So they had a more, I don't know, holistic view back then. Body and mind as one.
Exactly. And their methods, they might seem basic now, but they got the ball rolling, Recognizing anxiety as a real thing, it paved the way for more exploration.
First stones on the path kind of thing.
I like that. And speaking of important figures, we got to talk about Freud.
Right, Freud. Psychoanalysis, the unconscious mind, all that. How do you fit into the anxiety puzzle?
Freud, he was doing his thing in the late 1800s, early 1900s. One of the first to really categorize anxiety, study it like a medical condition. His idea was that anxiety came from these unresolved issues in the unconscious mind, stuff from childhood, a lot of the time.
So he shifted the focus then from like literal fluids to the complexity of the mind.
Exactly. Groundbreaking, really. Linking anxiety to the unconscious. And that led to therapies like psychoanalysis, trying to dig up those buried conflicts.
Must have been revolutionary at the time. To think our childhoods could have that much power over our mental health, even as adults.
Totally. Freud changed the game. Of course, some of his ideas we've moved on from, refined them, but his work, it shaped everything. How we see mental health, how we approach anxiety today, it all goes back to him.
Shows you how much we're always learning, always refining our understanding.
Absolutely. Modern psychiatry, we're getting better at classifying these disorders, treating them. We've moved on from the humors, from psychoanalysis even, to this more complex view, right?
Hmm.
Biology, genes, our environment, social factors, it all plays a role in anxiety.
Much more nuanced approach now.
Definitely. So we've explored anxiety pretty in depth. Let's shift gears to another big one, depression. It's not just being sad, though, right? It's more than that.
Oh, for sure. Everyone gets sad sometimes, but depression, that's a whole different beast. It's not a snap out of it kind of thing.
Exactly. It's a serious mood disorder. Sadness, hopelessness, losing interest in stuff you used to love. It's all consuming. Affects how you think, feel, behave, even your physical health.
Millions of people worldwide deal with this, right?
Yeah.
What are the signs? How do you know if it's more than just a bad day?
Well, being sad all the time, that's a big one. But it usually comes with other stuff. Exhaustion, changes in appetite, sleep's all messed up, can't concentrate, feeling worthless, guilty, even thoughts of suicide.
Like carrying a huge weight around, making even the smallest things feel impossible.
That's a good way to put it. Getting out of bed, taking a shower, even making food, it's overwhelming.
It's not about willpower then. Something else is going on.
Exactly. Depression, it's a mix of things. Genetics, biology, what's happening around you, your own psychology. It all plays a role, like a puzzle, you know? Each piece contributes to the whole picture.
So it's not someone's fault then, not a weakness or anything.
No, not at all. It's what's happening inside the brain, in the body. Often it's stuff outside of our control.
So where do we even start with causes then? Sounds complicated.
It is. We know genes are involved. Family history of depression increases your risk.
Like inheriting a vulnerability or something.
Kind of. But genes aren't destiny, remember that. Just because it runs in your family doesn't mean you're doomed. It just means you might be more susceptible.
Like having, I don't know, a loaded gun. Doesn't mean it'll go off, but the potential is there.
Now, that's an analogy. You hit on something important, triggers. Life events, especially super stressful or traumatic ones, they can be triggers. Losing a loved one, losing your job, relationship problems, money troubles, even just being sick all the time.
Life can be rough. It's no wonder those things impact our mental health.
It's true. And sometimes it's not even external stuff. Sometimes it's internal, like chemical imbalances in the brain.
Like serotonin, dopamine, norepinephrine, right? Those neurotransmitters, they all affect mood,
Right. And if those get out of whack, it can lead to depression.
which explains why medication can help some people, right? Antidepressants.
Exactly. They basically work by rebalancing those chemicals in the brain.
Like fine-tuning a control panel, trying to get everything back in sync.
Good way to put it. And just like with anxiety, remember, depression has different flavors.
There are types of depression. Tell me more.
Okay, so there's major depressive disorder, or MDD. That's what most people think of when they hear depression. It's that persistent, low mood, loss of interest in things, plus all those other symptoms we talked about.
The classic presentation.
Right, most common type. Then you have persistent depressive disorder, or PDD. Used to be called dysthymia.
That one's not ringing any bells. What's the difference?
PDD, it's like a chronic, low-grade depression. Lasts for at least 2 years, but the symptoms might not be as intense as MDD. Think of it like a constant low hum of sadness and fatigue.
Living under a gray cloud that never quite goes away.
Exactly, and even though it might not be as intense, it can really mess with your quality of life. Don't want to downplay that.
I can see how that would be draining year after year. What other types are there? What else should we know about?
Well, there's bipolar disorder. That one's characterized by these extreme swings in mood, energy, the whole 9 yards.
So it's not just lows then. There's highs too.
Exactly. You've got the periods of intense highs, mania or hypomania, and then the deep lows of depression.
Riding an emotional roller coaster, it sounds like.
That's a great way to describe it. The manic episodes, you might experience euphoria, racing thoughts, boundless energy, decreased need for sleep, and impulsive behavior.
So it can almost sound positive, all that energy and creativity,
Yeah.
but I bet it can lead to some risky choices too.
Exactly. It can be seductive, but what goes up must come down, right? And then the depression hits hard.
Sounds like a tough cycle to break.
Yeah.
Anything else? Any other types of depression?
Yep. Seasonal affective disorder, SAD, that one's linked to the changing seasons.
Oh yeah, SAD. I've heard of that one.
Yeah.
Usually hits in the winter when there's less sunlight.
Right on. It's probably got to do with your circadian rhythm getting thrown off. Less sunlight, your internal clock goes haywire, serotonin levels drop, and bam, your mood tanks.
So your brain's internal sunshine meter is depleted and your mood takes the hit.
Love it. And then there are some more severe types. Psychotic depression, postpartum depression.
Those both sound really tough to deal with. What makes them different?
Psychotic depression, it's like regular depression, but cranked up. Severe symptoms, plus you might experience psychosis, things like hallucinations or delusions.
So on top of feeling down, you're also dealing with a distorted sense of reality.
Exactly. Hallucinations, that's seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, feeling things that aren't real. Delusions, those are false beliefs that you hold on to no matter what.
That sounds incredibly scary and disorienting.
It can be, for sure. And then postpartum depression, as the name suggests, happens after childbirth.
Yeah, I've heard those hormonal changes after pregnancy can be a trigger for depression in some women.
Right, hormones are a big part of it. But there's also sleep deprivation, the huge adjustment of becoming a mother, changes in your sense of self.
It's a good reminder that even good changes, big life transitions, they can impact our mental health too.
Absolutely. We got to normalize talking about those experiences so people don't suffer in silence.
Speaking of seeking help, it's clear we've just scratched the surface here. What helps with all this? Anxiety and depression, I mean. Any similarities in how we manage them, treat them?
You're right. Both are complex and need a well-rounded approach. And you're also right, there are some overlaps in what works for both.
Like those lifestyle changes we talked about, right?
Mm.
Exercise, food, sleep.
You got it. You can't underestimate the basics. They're the foundation.
Like building a house on solid ground.
Exactly. And a house needs more than a foundation. Same with anxiety and depression. You got to tackle it from different angles. That's where therapy comes in.
Right, and we've got a lot about different types of therapy in our sources today. It can be overwhelming, though, trying to figure out what's what.
No doubt. That's where a mental health professional comes in. They can help you figure out the best route for you, what you need, what you prefer, all of that.
So there's no one-size-fits-all.
Nope. Different strokes for different folks. But one therapy that's used a lot, and it's super effective for both anxiety and depression, is CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy.
CBT, right.
Mm.
I've heard that one focuses on the link between thoughts, feelings, actions.
That's the one. The idea is that what you think influences how you feel, and that in turn influences what you do.
So if you can change your thinking, you can change your emotions, your behaviors, the whole shebang.
Bingo. CBT gives you tools, techniques, so you can pinpoint those negative thought patterns, challenge them, and reframe them.
Retraining your brain to react differently to challenges.
Exactly. And a cool thing about CBT is that it's a team effort. Therapist is there to guide you, but the work really happens outside the sessions.
So it empowers you to take control of your own healing.
You got it. And another therapy that's become popular, DBT, dialectical behavior therapy.
DBT, that one's for intense emotions, right? Like borderline personality disorder.
That's right. It was designed for that, but it works for a bunch of stuff, anxiety, depression too.
What's different about it?
DBT is all about building skills. 4 of them, actually. Mindfulness, distress tolerance, emotion regulation, and interpersonal effectiveness.
So it's like learning to handle those big feelings, not letting them control you.
Exactly. Mindfulness keeps you present. Distress tolerance gives you ways to cope without resorting to unhealthy stuff. Emotion regulation helps you, regulate your emotions. And interpersonal effectiveness, that's all about navigating relationships in a healthy way.
Sounds like a whole toolbox for life.
It kind of is. And listen, CBT, DBT, those are just 2 big ones. There are tons of approaches out there, each with its own strengths.
Well, let's hear about them. What else is there?
Okay, so interpersonal therapy, pretty self-explanatory. It's all about relationships.
So the idea being that who we surround ourselves with, how we interact, that all affects our mental state.
Exactly. Interpersonal therapy looks at your current relationships, how they connect to your well-being, helps you pinpoint and work through issues that might be contributing to your anxiety or depression.
Like relationship tune-up, learning to build healthier connections.
Exactly. Communication, boundaries, stronger relationships, it's all connected.
Sounds incredibly valuable. Now, what about psychodynamic therapy? That one's rooted in Freud's work, right?
Right. Again, it's inspired by psychoanalysis, but more focused, doesn't take as long. The idea is to figure out how unconscious thoughts, feelings, even stuff from your past might be affecting you now. Your emotions, your behavior, all of it.
So uncovering hidden patterns that are driving the bus, basically.
You got it. It helps you connect the dots between your past and present. Sometimes just understanding that connection can be really freeing.
Like shining a light on those dark corners of your mind, right?
Exactly. And as helpful as individual therapy can be, a lot of people find comfort in groups.
Group therapy. Yeah, I bet that could be powerful.
Yeah.
Especially if you feel alone in what you're going through.
It can be amazing. Safe space, supportive, connect with people who get it, Share your story, hear theirs, realize you're not the only one.
Just knowing that,
Mm.
that you're not alone,
Yeah.
it can make all the difference.
Absolutely. And it's not just sharing, it's learning from each other, seeing things differently, figuring out coping strategies together.
A shared journey, like you said earlier.
Yeah,
But this time, it's healing and growing.
exactly. And that shared experience can be really powerful, really empowering.
Okay, so we've covered individual therapy, CBT, DBT, interpersonal, psychodynamic, and then group therapy. What am I missing? What other kinds of therapy are out there?
So many. And the field is always changing, new approaches popping up all the time, like art therapy, music therapy, play therapy.
Those sound really interesting. I've always found art and music therapeutic in my own life.
Yeah.
But how does it actually work in a therapy setting?
They use creative expression as a way to explore emotions, process things, and heal. Art therapy, you express yourself through art, right?
Yeah.
Painting, drawing, sculpting, even journaling.
So instead of talking about it, you create something.
Yeah. And it's not about being good at art, it's about the process. It's a way to tap into your subconscious,
Yeah.
get past those mental blocks and express what's inside in a way that feels safe.
Giving shape and color to feelings that you might not be able to put into words.
Exactly. And if you connect more with sound, music therapy can be incredibly powerful.
Oh, music for sure. It can make you feel everything. Happy, sad, angry, peaceful. It's like a direct line to your heart.
Right. It bypasses all that overthinking and goes right for the emotional center. And when we
Mm.
use it in therapy, it can help people express themselves, ease stress, improve communication, even with physical issues sometimes.
So it's more than just putting on some calming tunes, although I'm sure that helps too.
It's way more interactive. It's all about you. Singing, writing songs, playing instruments, just listening, even just talking about how music makes you feel. Depends on you and your goals.
That's really cool. Adaptable, like you said before.
Exactly. And often it's used with other therapies just to make them work better.
No, I can't forget about the kids. Play therapy, that one's always intrigued me.
It's amazing. Think about it. For kids, play, that's their language, right? How they figure out the world, deal with stuff, let you know how they're feeling.
So through play, a therapist can really understand a child, help them work through things in a way that feels natural to them.
You got it. The therapist will watch them play, looking for patterns, themes, how they're expressing their emotions.
Like a secret code, but it's through their toys and games.
Exactly. And through play, kids can show you things they don't have the words for yet.
Gives them a voice, in a way.
Exactly. Now, shifting gears a bit, animal-assisted therapy, that's getting really popular, and for good reason.
There's something so special about the bond between people and animals. It makes sense that it would be therapeutic.
It really is. Animal-assisted therapy, it brings trained animals, usually dogs or horses, into the mix.
So you might have a therapy dog there during your session.
Exactly. They bring comfort, lower stress, and even motivate people to participate in therapy who might be hesitant otherwise.
I bet it's especially helpful for people who have a hard time in social situations or connecting with a therapist.
You're right. Animals don't judge. They just love you. And that can be incredibly powerful for someone who's been through trauma or struggles with relationships.
Healing can come from anywhere, huh? What about mindfulness-based therapies? Those seem to be everywhere now.
For sure. Mindfulness is kind of trendy, but it comes from ancient practices, contemplative traditions, stuff like that.
So it's more than a fad, more like a resurgence of something that's been around forever.
Exactly. And in the past few decades, it's found its way into therapy with things like mindfulness-based stress reduction, or MBSR, and mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, or MBCT.
We hear a lot about mindfulness these days, but what does it actually mean to be mindful?
It means paying attention to what's happening right now in this moment without judging it. Noticing your thoughts, your feelings, what's going on in your body without getting carried away by them.
So being a one with what's going on inside, but not getting lost in it.
Exactly. Observing those thoughts and emotions with curiosity, acceptance, not judgment.
That sounds hard.
It takes practice. Like anything else, the more you do it, the easier it gets.
So what's so great about mindfulness anyway?
Tons of benefits. Lowers stress and anxiety, improves focus, helps you regulate your emotions better, even makes you more compassionate and empathetic.
Wow, that's quite a list.
It is. And the best part, mindfulness is portable. You can do it anywhere, anytime. Doesn't require any special gear, no fancy meditation cushions or anything.
So I don't need a special pillow to meditate.
Nope. You can practice mindfulness while you're walking, eating, showering, even stuck in traffic. It's just about bringing awareness to those everyday moments.
Finding those pockets of peace, even in the middle of a crazy day.
Exactly.
So where were we? Oh, right. Those specific types of therapy. Ready when you are.
All right, let's start with one that might appeal to folks who, I don't know, find talking about their feelings a little, well, daunting. Art therapy.
Yeah, I can see that. Art is a different outlet, a different way to express things.
Exactly. It's about processing your emotions, but through art, through creating. And it can be incredibly freeing.
So instead of saying, I feel X, you might paint it or
Mhm.
sculpt it or just doodle it out.
Exactly. And listen, it's not about being the next Picasso. It's the act of creating that matters. It's a way to tap into that subconscious, get around those mental blocks we all have, and express those inner feelings in a way that feels safe.
Giving form to emotions that don't have words yet or that you're not ready to say out loud.
You get it. And for those who connect more through sound, music therapy can be incredibly powerful.
Music is powerful, that's for sure. Joy, sadness, anger, peace. Music can make you feel it all.
It's true. Music has this way of cutting through all the mental noise right to the heart of how we feel. And in therapy, we use that power to help people express themselves, to manage stress and anxiety, to improve communication, even with physical stuff sometimes.
So it's more involved than just like listening to calming music then.
Oh, yeah. It's all about interaction, personalization. We might sing, write songs, play instruments, listen to music, or even just like break down how different pieces make you feel. Depends on the person, their
Yeah.
needs, their goals.
Sounds like it can be adapted in a lot of ways then. Versatile, like you said before.
Exactly. And it's often used alongside other therapies to boost their effectiveness.
Now, what about the little ones? Play therapy. That one's always fascinated me.
It's pretty amazing when you think about it. Play, that's how kids talk, right? It's how they understand the world, how they deal with stuff, how they tell us how they're feeling, even if they don't have the words for it.
So a therapist can use play to really get into a child's world, help them work through stuff on their level, in their language.
Exactly. We watch them play, look for patterns, themes, how those emotions are coming out.
Like a secret code, but it's all in how they play.
Exactly. And through play, they can show us things, work through things that they can't say out loud yet.
It gives them a voice, in a way.
Exactly. Switching gears a bit, animal-assisted therapy, that's getting big, and for good reason.
I get that. The bond between people and animals, it's amazing.
Yeah.
Of course it'd be therapeutic.
It really is. And that's what we use in animal-assisted therapy. We bring in trained animals, usually dogs or horses, into the therapeutic setting.
So you might actually have a therapy dog right there with you during a session.
That's right. Animals, they just have this way of making people feel better. They lower stress, ease anxiety. And for some people, they're the thing that finally gets them to open up, to engage with the process.
I bet for people who struggle with social anxiety or have a hard time connecting with a therapist, an animal could make all the difference.
Exactly. Animals don't judge. They love you no matter what. That can be so powerful, especially for trauma survivors, people who struggle in relationships.
It really drives home that healing can come from anywhere. Okay, what about those mindfulness-based therapies? Everyone's talking about mindfulness these days.
I know, right? It's definitely having a moment. But mindfulness itself, it's not new. It comes from these ancient practices, contemplative traditions that have been around for centuries.
Ah, so it's not just a fad then. More like rediscovering something that's always been there.
Exactly. And in recent years, it's been incorporated into therapy with things like mindfulness-based stress reduction or MBSR and mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, MBCT, stuff like that.
Okay, so we keep hearing mindfulness.
Mm.
But what does it actually mean to be mindful?
Simply put, it's paying attention to right now, this moment, without judging it. Noticing your thoughts, how you feel, what your body's doing, without getting swept away by any of it.
So being aware of what's going on inside, but not getting like stuck in your head about it.
Exactly. It's about observing those thoughts, feelings with a sense of curiosity, like, oh, that's interesting. This is what my mind is doing right now. Not about judging yourself for it.
Sounds like it takes practice to get to that point.
It definitely does. But like any skill, the more you practice, the better you get.
So why is mindfulness so helpful then?
Oh man, where do I even start? It's been shown to lower stress, ease anxiety, help you focus, regulate your emotions, even makes you a more compassionate, empathetic person.
That's incredible.
And you know the best part? It's portable. Mindfulness, you can do it anywhere, anytime. No need for special equipment or anything.
You mean I don't need a meditation cushion to reap the benefits?
Nope. You can practice while you walk, while you eat, even stuck in traffic. It's just about bringing awareness to the everyday stuff.
Finding peace, even in the middle of chaos. I like it.
That's what it's all about.
Wow. We really have covered a lot today, haven't we? Anxiety, depression, all the different angles, the history, how we cope, the therapies. It's been a whirlwind, but in a good way.
It's a lot, that's for sure. But the takeaway's simple, right? You're not alone. There's help out there, and there's hope.
I love that. Couldn't have said it better myself. And listeners, we hope this deep dive has given you some food for thought, maybe even some new tools to handle whatever life throws your way.
Remember, you've got this. And if you need help, please reach out. Don't hesitate.
That's a wrap on this episode of The Deep Dive. Until next time, take care of yourselves, and we'll catch you next time for another deep dive into a new and exciting topic.